The old mansion on the outskirts of town had always been a source of fascination for the local children. It was said to be haunted, and the stories of the ghostly inhabitants had been passed down from generation to generation. But for one group of friends, the curiosity was too much to bear. They decided to sneak into the mansion one night to see for themselves if the stories were true. As they made their way through the overgrown garden, they noticed a large gate at the back of the property. It was locked, but one of the boys had brought a set of bolt cutters and they were able to break through. As they entered the garden, they were greeted by a large dog. It was a black Labrador, and it seemed to be staring at them intently. The friends were surprised to see the animal, as they had heard that the mansion had been empty for years. The dog seemed friendly enough, wagging its tail and barking excitedly. They decided to follow it, thinking it might lead them to a way into the mansion. But as they walked deeper into the garden, they began to feel uneasy. The dog seemed to be leading them further and further away from the house, and the darkness was closing in. Just as they were about to turn back, the dog suddenly let out a terrifying growl and lunged at them. They scattered, running in different directions, but the dog was relentless. It chased after them, snapping and snarling, and soon one of the friends was caught. The dog dragged her to the ground, biting and clawing at her until she was nothing more than a lifeless pile of blood and bones. The others managed to escape, but they were too terrified to go back to the mansion. They told their parents what had happened, but they didn't believe the story. They thought the friends had been drinking or taking drugs and had made up the whole thing. But the friends knew what they had seen, and they knew that the dog was real. For years, the friends avoided the mansion, but they couldn't shake the memory of that terrifying night. They would often dream about the dog, and they would wake up in a cold sweat. But one day, one of the friends decided to go back to the mansion to see if the dog was still there. He wanted to prove to himself that it had been a nightmare and that there was nothing to be afraid of. As he approached the gate, he could see the dog sitting on the other side. It looked just as it had on the night of the attack, and the friend froze in fear. But then he remembered what he had come to do, and he pushed the gate open. The dog lunged at him, but he was able to dodge out of the way. He ran towards the mansion, but the dog was right behind him. The friend managed to make it inside, but the dog was still chasing him. He could hear it snarling and growling as it followed him through the empty rooms. He ran up the stairs, and the dog was right behind him. He slammed the door shut and locked it, but he could still hear the dog scratching and clawing at the door. The friend knew he had to get out of the mansion before the dog broke through. He went back downstairs and saw a window that was open. He climbed out and ran away, never looking back. He never spoke of the incident again, but the memory of that terrifying dog haunted him for the rest of his days. Years later, the mansion was finally torn down, and the land was sold to developers. But the stories of the dog that haunted the mansion lived on,